And my pleasure is to welcome our panelists to the podium. This evening we are privileged to have two brothers with us, the executive producer of Omar, Eddy, Abbas, Eddy Zuaiter, and the co-star and producer, Waleed Zuaiter. It's also my pleasure to introduce the moderator for tonight's conversation, Mr. Ahmed Shihab-Eldin of the HuffPost Live. Ahmed Shihab-Eldin is an Emmy-nominated journalist, social media addict, and news producer. In 2012, he was featured on Forbes 30 under 30 list of young disruptors, innovators, and media entrepreneurs impatient to change the world. That same year, Ahmed left Al Jazeera English and joined HuffPost Live as a founding member, where he currently hosts and works with a producer for what Mashable's readers chose as the most innovative media product to merge in 2012. Ahmed also was our guest a couple of years ago for the World Press Freedom Day, which we celebrated and marked today at the United Nations. Ahmed, welcome back. Kifak.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ahmed Shihab-Eldin. I'm so thrilled and honored to be here for what's going to be hopefully a special Q&A. I would love all of you to participate as much as possible, so we're going to have 15 minutes of kind of a conversation here, and then we're going to have another 15 minutes where you're going to be asking questions, perhaps with some commentary, but questions. And without further ado, just to speed things up, I want to start by introducing Waleed Zuaiter. Waleed's a Palestinian-American based in Los Angeles who grew up in Kuwait. He's received much critical acclaim on the New York stage. One highlight, he's performed alongside Meryl Streep and Kevin Kline in Bertolt Brecht's Mother Courage at the Public Theater. He's also the producer of the annual New York Arab American Comedy Festival, as well as a member of the Arab American Theater Collective, I should say, Nibras. And he plays, in case you missed it, Agent Rami in Omar, which he also produced. Also joined by Abbas Eddy Zuaiter. He's a Palestinian-American businessman, for those of you who don't know. He's a former partner at PricewaterhouseCoopers and worked for a decade with George Soros as Chief Operating Officer and Chief Financial Officer of Soros Fund Management. Omar is the first movie he produced as executive producer. Again, I can't emphasize enough personally and professionally how honored I am to be here for this conversation. And I want to start because the first time I saw this film, the one thing that I couldn't get out of my head is a Palestinian watching this is different than an Israeli watching this, is different than someone who's not familiar with the conflict. I learned a lot as someone who's originally Palestinian, but also grew up in Kuwait briefly. Waleed also grew up in Kuwait. And I'm curious, I want to start with you, Waleed. What did you learn making, starring in, and producing this film?
A lot. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes, so I learned a lot from my mistakes, and I keep telling my brother I'm still making mistakes. So you know, it's been an incredible, life-changing journey for me. What attracted me to the project was the script, really. I mean, you know, Hani's been a dear friend, and we met shortly after the success of Paradise Now, and we've been fans of each other's work, and we wanted to work together, and so he sent me the script, and I loved the role. He wanted me to look at, to play the role. I loved the role, but I loved the overall story. I fell head over heels in love with, and it was the fastest script I'd ever read, so for me, that was a first part of the learning process, was identifying like a really, really great, captivating story that, quite honestly, I was proud that it took place in Palestine, but to me, it was a very timeless, universal, classical story. And I come from a theater background, and to me, it was very Shakespearean in just, the love and the tragedy and the conflict and the barrier. So, and I learned, so the learning process continued from there. I learned a tremendous amount from Hani as an artist, as a human being. I learned a great deal from my brothers. My other brother, Ahmed Zuaiter, and my brother Eddy, the three of us are partners, and this was our first time doing something together, so we learned a lot from that process as well. But without them, there is no way that we could have made this film.
And you know, the reason I started with what you learned is I think film can be an incredible avenue. Let me move closer. Yeah, sorry. An incredible avenue to learn. And I'm curious, this being your first film, Eddy, why produce this film and what did you learn?
Well, I didn't want to do it, actually. In fact, I think I turned it down at least 3 times. I mean, I'm an investor. I'm not. I love watching movies probably as much as anyone in the audience does. But one thing I learned, actually, the movie making business is not a good business. Any one movie, the chance of any one movie being successful is very, very, very low because of the tastes, people's tastes, character, etc. So, to me, it was a lot about the ability for Palestinians to tell stories. So. One thing I did learn, and I'm a student of history, is that for any civil society to thrive and survive, there needs to be the ability for the people of that civil society to tell their own stories. If you go through the history of mankind, we're full of people that have an ability to tell their own stories. It's the way we relate to each other, and it's the way we communicate to each other. So for me and for Ahmed, our middle brother, who's also an investor and also turned down the movie 3 or 4 times, we put certain conditions to Waleed and Hani. We said, 1, it has to be done in Palestine. 2, it has to be financed by Palestinians. And Ahmed and I agreed to take over the whole budget, but then we were going to go to other Palestinians. And 3, we want to employ Palestinians. Because to us, the objective here was wouldn't it be nice if we can have Palestinians produce, sponsor, and help other Palestinian artists tell their own story. So that was the objective. And we wanted to do it for profit, by the way. So all of you that are seeing it for free, please go out and see it tomorrow or buy it on iTunes for profit. Because what we'd like to do is use those profits and redeploy them to do more movies by Palestinians, for Palestinians, in Palestine.
You know, whenever there's a film or anything done about Israel and Palestine, there's always the controversy surrounding it, whether it's real or perceived. And I was actually watching an interview where, Waleed, you said you were surprised when people said this was a controversial film, at least initially. And you know, what I find so powerful about the film is that for as much as it is inherently about politics, it's really a love story. It's a thriller. It's about betrayal. It's about things that don't really factor into politics. Is this a political film in your mind? And what do you make of the controversy now that it's been playing for a while?
Yeah, when I first read it, I really didn't see it as a political film. To me, like I said earlier, it was just this very Shakespearean, tragic story. Even the end, which is what we've gotten a lot of response for, that's where people think it's most political or that there's some kind of message there. Even the end, when reading it, you know, Hani writes in a style where it was almost like an outline. And so I just kind of read it. I was shocked, but I didn't see it. I didn't see it coming, but I didn't see it as political. So, but if you think about it, you know, when you want, you know, there's different layers for making a film. There's the writing, and then there's the filming, and then there's the editing. And that's a sign of a really great filmmaker, because Hani was able to execute his vision. And a lot of that has to do with the simplicity of it. So the politics are really, or what Hani's trying to say was really underneath, and it wasn't in your face.
Does this film make a political statement per se to you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't come from a world of politics, so for me, I would say that the movie says that the occupation needs to end. You know, I think that's very clear, and really at any cost. And that is a very powerful statement.
You know, I spoke to Hani. I had the pleasure of interviewing Hani on HuffPost Live, and among the many things that he said that surprised me was one that I want to ask you about, because it's the logistics of making a film. You insisted with those 3 rules, as you probably should have, you know, but there are logistical challenges in making a film in Palestine. I'm curious, were you surprised by any of those? Because he seemed to suggest that as compared with previous films, this was somehow much easier. Maybe it's because it's a feature, not a documentary.
Yeah, I'd say we were surprised, pleasantly surprised. So initially, when we did the movie, we were very concerned of our ability to do the movie, to film it. And so we actually got a bond, an insurance bond. It turned out we actually didn't need it because first from the Palestinian side, the Palestinian people, the Palestinian Authority were very receptive, were open, were proud to have us there. And then, quite frankly, I think even from the Israeli side, we did not find a large amount of obstacles. The scenes that you see on the wall, we weren't allowed to climb all the way to the top of the wall, but we were able to get permits to film near the wall, be on the side of the wall. Waleed can elaborate more about that. So I think we were surprised at our ability to be able to film. With that said, filming is a complicated process, and to film in Palestine is even more complicated. So, the ability to be able to find a jail. I mean, the jail that you saw actually was a school that we had to turn into a jail, It was
an abandoned warehouse. But,
Sorry.
Yes, oh, sorry. Somebody turned off my mic. Yeah, it was an abandoned warehouse, but yeah, basically that was the idea.
The film also deals in a way that... My turn. In a way that many other films about this issue don't, with collaboration and the question of what it means to be a collaborator. What about that theme do you think set this film apart? Or, if not that, what set this film apart from the others that are either created in Palestine or about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict?
I think what makes it special is it's not just about the physical torture or the physical barriers that the occupation creates. It's about the psychological effect that it has and the paranoia that I feel Palestinians all around the world live with. I mean, I lived with that paranoia throughout the process of making the film and throughout post-production and everything.
What was that like?
It wasn't pleasant. I mean, I don't know how to describe it other than the fact that, you always think that, either somebody's watching over your shoulder or that you're somehow should be guarded in saying what you truly believe or speaking the truth, really. I mean, that's kind of what it boils down to, and I wasn't expecting that. I mean, Hani talked about getting death threats after Paradise Now, and Warner Brothers, who distributed that film, and the publicists, they had death threats and stuff. So, when you hear that kind of stuff, you're like, God, how can anybody feel so strongly against a movie? I mean, at the end of the day, it's a movie, but there's some powerful messages or powerful way of communicating. Because what you do in film is you engage people emotionally. And if you can engage people emotionally and you can get them to invest in the characters, then that's the real power of film and storytelling. Sorry, I got off track.
No,
question.
Just quickly before we open it up to the audience, what would you highlight as the biggest challenge, either personally or professionally, working on a film of this nature that deals with such complex emotions that might otherwise be hard to tap into if you're not familiar with the reality of what life's like there? I know you spent quite a bit of time there.
I think it really kind of comes down to, one, it was my first time producing a film. Two, producing a film in Palestine. We're so proud of this, but 95% of our investment comes from private and Palestinian investors. It's never happened before. 5% of our investment came from Dubai, from the Injaz, which is affiliated with the Dubai Film Festival, one of their biggest sponsors. And so, when you're producing an independent film, when you're doing it in Palestine, and, when we got a completion bond, because we were worried, it's a volatile situation, anything can break out. And when, our crew, I'd say about 95% of our crew are Palestinian. And that's not happened before, too. So everybody in the key crew positions, that was their first time as the head of a department. They'd either been assistants or they'd been, somehow part of the team. But everybody stepped up their game to the very, very top. And everybody really, really brought it home because that was a statement too, that, you know, we can make and tell our own stories, and we're going to rise to the challenge. So, you know, like just for example, like our director of photography, this is his first feature film as a director of photography. He'd been a camera assistant or whatever, or a part of the department. So he was here for the Oscars. I told him, I said, you have to come, please come. This is like an investment. Finally, he changed his mind, and he came. And then the night that he arrived, we had an Oscar event, and Catherine Bigelow came up to me and she said, "Oh my God, I just saw Omar. What an incredible film!" You know, and the third question she asked me was, "Who shot it? Who filmed it?" And I said, "Hold that thought." I went over and I grabbed Shihab-Eldin, who was talking to Tommy Lee Jones, and I grabbed him and I took him to Catherine Bigelow, and I said, "This is the man that shot our film. It's his first feature film." 2 days later, she hires him on a film that she's producing as the DP. And that, to me, is, you know, just an incredible, I'm so proud of that. I'm so proud that we've given Palestinians opportunities to shine.
And Leem, for example, I think it's her first film.
Leem, yeah, and my manager's here in the audience. I'm proud of her, too. You know, Leem was here for the Oscars, and there was an audition for a big Barry Levinson film, you know, starring Bill Murray and a huge, you know, star cast. And so Sandy sees the breakdown, and Leem is perfect for it. I had found out like maybe a few weeks ago that Leem can sing by, you know, doing my social media homework and trying to get, you know, find ways to market the film. And I said, "Leem, is this you singing?" She's like, "Yeah." And the role called for singing. So my son put her on tape, and she booked one of the leads in this big Barry Levinson film too. So that's just, you know, just makes me very, very proud of that.
And this goes back to what Eddy was talking about Palestinians, whether they're actors or what have you, telling their own stories. And in many ways, because timing matters, this film has come off the heels of other films which have also received notoriety and attention and recognition, including on the Academy Award level. Of course, Five Broken Cameras and others. I'm curious, now that you've invested, and now that you've said yes after saying no 3 times, do you think if someone else were to come with an idea, a similar concept, you'd be more likely to invest off the get-go? Or based on your experience, were there some challenges, maybe some that Waleed was talking about, that you think still remain that prevent people from telling their stories if they're Palestinian?
I'll probably say no. And then I'll probably think about it again and redirect it. I mean, look, it's an incredible, and not, by the way, I mean, we're Palestinian and we're very proud of the Palestinian artists and talent, but I would tell you throughout the Middle East, there's an incredible group of young individuals that have a freedom of expression and the ability now with the advent of technology to be able to tell their stories in a very effective and mesmerizing way. And I think there's money to be made in that. So whether or not I would do a specific movie again, probably not. By the way, Wally didn't answer part of the question. One of the challenges for me for doing the movie was working with family members. So I happen to be his eldest brother, so believe me, that was not easy. So, but I do think that it would be. I mean, Ahmed, I actually have thought a lot about this. And I think that similar to the film industry in the United States and in India and other parts of the world, there is room for 2 or 3 companies to be created to be able to have a source, an outlet for people to present their stories, have them be underwritten, written, developed, and produced and distributed for the local markets. And I think that actually, as itself, is a business.
Are all the barriers still in place, some of the ones we alluded to? You know, so often, for as much as we celebrate the fact that morale and, you know, there's so many films, you know, that have gotten a lot of attention and some that are fantastic that don't get as much attention. Do you feel that, in your experience throughout your career, there's less of a barrier now for Palestinians to tell their own stories or to film in Palestine or to provide
Sure.
for their
I do think so, and I'm very, very grateful for that, because throughout the whole process of promoting Omar, I've seen that. I mean, I've seen that firsthand. I've seen it also through the great work of the Institute for Middle East Understanding that's really been a partner to us in promoting the film and getting all kinds of great press. That, you know, there's a change in language, you know, there's a change in terminology, like we're seeing it in, you know, in the papers. We're seeing the word occupation being used, we're seeing separation wall, we're seeing, you know, Palestine.
There is a shift in the discourse. I mean, as someone who works in the media, I can attest to that, and I'm curious what you would attribute that to based on your experience on this film.
I mean, I think it's attributed to a lot of filmmakers even before Omar. I mean, I think it's you know, Palestinians are not stopping to tell their stories and to tell it effectively and in a great quality manner. And I also think that maybe, you know, through technology means and for ways to see films, that's gotten a lot easier too. So you know, people have stories that they want to tell, and you know, there's an audience there. There's also a younger audience too.
And the reason I asked this about the generational gap, and please, if I am going over for our Q&A, someone notify me, because I could go on forever. Fantastic. Last question, very briefly then. The director, when I spoke to Hani, you know, he said something interesting when I asked him this question, because for as much as this speaks to different generations, my mother's generation and my father's, everyone who watched it came away with one takeaway. They were very proud. I'll just get through the question. They were very proud, but they also said in Arabic, لا مستحيل يكسب الأوسكار. And the reason I asked Hani this is because there are still those naysayers who choose to focus on the negative or whatever stereotype that a Palestinian film could never win an Oscar. Your reaction to that, Eddy?
Not really. I mean, I think to be born Palestinian, you have to be born skeptic. There's a skeptic in every Palestinian family. There is a conspiracy theory in every Palestinian family. So I don't know, Ahmed. We tried to make a good movie, and that was our objective, a good movie that was commercially successful. And what I'm very proud of is that Palestinians can do that. And hopefully the world has seen that. Whether we won an Oscar or not won an Oscar, that's for Waleed and the artists. They care about stuff like that. I don't. I cared about...
He just cares about the box office.
I cared about...
Box office? No. Someone's got to care about the box office. All right. Waleed, anything quickly to add before we open it up for questions?
No, I totally echo what Eddy said. You know, we really, we set out to make the best, most truthful film, and you know, one that is rooted in truth. And really, that's all we can do as artists, is tell the truth.
You know, I just want to quickly say this film had me as angry as it had me inspired, as it had me happy. I don't know how that happened, so job well done, because that's rare. So let's, with that, let's open it up to questions. Go ahead, Shakir.
This question is from Palestine. I'm asking questions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's worth quickly mentioning that there's been a lot of enthusiasm online, on social media, people asking questions knowing that this was going to take place. So please.
The success of a film is usually measured by different variables. Profit made at the box office, this is for you, Eddy. Nominations, iTunes rankings, etc. What's the main measurable for you as a Palestinian producer and actor of Omar?
You know, it really makes me feel very proud to see that, you know, the first day or the second day that we were released on iTunes and we were the #1 foreign language film. I mean, that to me is, I was so proud to see Palestine, Omar #1. And I think we still are #1 in the foreign, and you know, and we're in the top 50, that week we were in the top 50 iTunes sales all time. And we were 48, I think, and now I think we're at 22. So that's pretty amazing. I mean, our goal is to be in the top 5, and it would be great to be #1 and to put Palestine on, you know, on the map yet again. So that's, I'm giddy when I think about that. I mean, really, it's
Yeah, as you should be.
It's amazing.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
To watch this film because I was interested in how Palestinian will portray a love story. And it's usually I don't like watching movies with violent scenes. But to my mind now, it's kind of a rude awakening of man's inhumanity to man. And I hope very soon that all countries will be united into one understanding. That is my comment.
Thank
but
you.
I like the film very
Thank you.
much. Although I closed my eyes, during the violent.
Understandable. If we could, I appreciate the comments, but if we could ask questions just to facilitate a conversation, that'd be appreciated. Thank you. Go ahead. Or we'll go here first. And maybe tell us your name.
I'm Michael. I just wanted to ask, was it tough to act in the movie as well as be a producer in the movie, or was that all kind of part of the whole thing?
No, it's extremely difficult. I mean, I thought I knew it was going to be difficult, but I didn't realize how difficult it would be. There's an inherent conflict of interest, and we put it into our contracts, and we talked about it, and I kind of had to really, because the important thing as an actor, you really want to maintain a relationship with your director, and so it was a lot of kind of switching hats and balancing, and we had another producer that we hired, and so a lot of the day-to-day stuff was handled by them, but it still was very hard, and and then I thought that would end when we were done filming, but no, then it remained. There was, at some times there was still a conflict of interest afterwards. So it's a juggle. I found myself going from left brain to right brain, and my right brain was screaming, going, I need to be used somehow. And with all the producing work, that is really not how I've been functioning for a while now. So whenever I got into doing a scene, I put everything into it because I was just dying to be creative. So I think my experience has been that the best producers are ones that are very creative, honestly, because problem solving is what producing is, and to be a problem solver, you have to be creative.
Anyone else? Go ahead, lady in the back. Yeah, you have to press the button. Just a little gray button on the left.
I was wondering, oh, hi. Yeah, I was saying my name is Diane Shihab, and I don't know if I'm a relation to Mr. Shihab-Eldin. I probably may be far away over the centuries. Anyway, I wanted to know, has this movie been shown in Israel? And if yes or no, whatever the answer is, any Israeli reaction by either private people or official?
It's a great question, and if we could also answer what the reaction's been inside Palestine, if it's been shown as well.
Sure. So yes, we had a premiere in Israel January 7th this year, and there were mixed reactions. It was in Tel Aviv where we had the premiere, and in Tel Aviv it was actually received very well. But Tel Aviv, it's kind of hard to tell what the real reaction is because it's kind of, just people from everywhere, and so it's a bit of a bubble. So it's hard to really gauge. From Israeli friends that of mine that I've asked and that have seen it, they said from them and their friends it was extremely moving and very truthful, and so that was good to hear. Within Palestine, in order to be qualified for the Oscars, we had to be released at least 7 consecutive days before September 30th. So we had our premiere in Ramallah September 18th, and that was, I mean, incredible. I mean, the facility carried about maybe, or had space for 1,000 people. 2,000 people were in there. People standing, sitting, babies in arms, and the quality was not very good. The projection, it was actually very dark, and the sound was bad. The facilities there are not where they need to be yet, but people didn't care. They loved it. They loved every minute of it, and it was very validating.
Anything to add, Eddy?
Yeah, no, I'd say that the Palestinian reaction, which was expected to be good, even if we made a bad movie, I think Palestinians would probably like it. But it was incredible how much the Palestinian diaspora, wherever we go, really cared about the movie and was very proud of the movie. And I think that was one of the side effects of it, is that it created a connection between those that are in Palestine and those that are outside Palestine. And so it was very well received in Palestine, and I'm very proud of that. With the exception of the fact that Palestinians are also very good critics. So of course we were told 10 different ways how we should have done better, but well received.
Yeah, I chose not to pass along my mom's criticisms, but they were very lengthy. I watched it with her.
I wanted to just add something too, that it was very important for us that the movie gets released in Israel.